everyone, it's Anita from Wild Thistle Kitchen, coming to you from my kitchen on this snowy day. And today I thought I would share my very messy, unorganized seed collection with you all. And I'm gonna also organize it and I'll show you the end result. I also just wanted to share some of my favorite varieties of produce that I grow, things I'm excited to grow for the first time, and also just some of my go-to companies that I like to buy seeds from. So let's get started. This is my very messy, unorganized seed collection, and although I love it very much and it gets me very excited for gardening, I'm ashamed that this is the current state of affairs. It's just been growing, and you know, I get the new seeds and I shove them in here on my shelf, and this is how they live. But today I am going to organize them in these handy dandy little containers. They're meant for photos. I got the idea for these from Shay at the Elliott Homestead. She had a similar video and a similarly messy seed collection. I think it's just what happens. We're busy during the gardening season, and once the gardening season is over, we think about it, of course. I always think about it, but we don't go back to our seeds, you know, during the winter until we're really ready to plant again, or at least to start thinking about what we're planting. And you know, I'm not making excuses. It's just one of those things that I think happens even to the very best of gardeners and farmers and homesteaders, and I definitely consider Shay to be one of those. So anyway, thank you for the inspiration to, you know, try this organizing method, and I have high hopes. I think it's going to be great. I have 2 of these, and if I need more, I can order more. I'll leave a link below to these if you're interested. Not an affiliate, just I think they're really awesome, and we'll see how it goes. So before I do that, I just want to talk about some of my favorite seed companies. And at the very top of the list is Baker Creek. This is a cabbage variety I'm going to grow this year, try to grow. They're just they have so many unique and heirloom seeds, just so many. I mean, I have spent hours scrolling their website and their seed catalog and just dreaming of being able to grow all of those things, but of course I can't. They have great descriptions on you know, the varieties if you're looking for like a storage cabbage or storage carrots, as many of us are looking for those types of crops. They'll let you know, and you can read comments from people who have grown them. It's just, they are definitely my favorite. You can get really just practical varieties, practical crops if you're going to be growing lots for storage, but also they have really fun, beautiful things that, you know, maybe they're not as practical for growing large crops and storing and preserving, but they make you happy. They make me happy, and I think that's an important thing in a garden, is to have beautiful things that make you smile, so that when you're out there sweating your butt off and, you know, picking squash bugs off of your plants, you can look over and see something beautiful, and it reminds you why you're doing it all. So anyway, a little bit of romance there. Let me see, another one. Oh, well, here. These are, well, this is sweet corn. The variety is Who Gets Kissed, and this is from High Mowing Organic Seeds. I have purchased a few things from them in the past, and I can't remember what right now, but they're not a brand new company to me. But this variety of corn I have never grown, and I saw this on another channel, the Seasonal Homestead. Yes, the Seasonal Homestead. And it just, she highly recommended this variety, and I thought, why not give it a try? So I really appreciate that High Mowing is an organic seed company. I feel like it's just an important thing to me. Not everything I grow comes from organic seed companies, but everything I grow is organic. I grow organically. And it just feels good starting from that point. Knowing the quality that you're getting, you're not going to have any, you know, pesticides or chemicals in your seeds, and I like that feeling. So yeah, High Mowing organic seeds. I'll leave links to these companies that I'm mentioning. I am not an affiliate for any of them. Just I've had good success with the seeds that I have gotten from them, and prices are very reasonable, great customer service, just all around. I recommend these companies. And next, I actually have not, I don't think I've ever grown anything from Hudson Valley Seed, but I know, I mean, they've been recommended to me by dozens of farmers, gardeners, homesteaders on YouTube. So I got a few varieties to try this year, and I'm excited about that. Let me see here. Yep, this is the last one that I'm gonna share. Well, no, maybe two more. This is Pine Tree Garden Seeds. I have grown a couple different varieties from them over the last couple of years. Most notably, well, this bean. This is I had already opened this one, and it seals right back up again, which is nice. But these, gosh, I'm trying to remember where I learned of this company, and I can't right now, but if I think about it, I'll put it down in the description box with the link to them. But yeah, just these are some really good green beans that I grew last year. Very prolific bush bean variety, just a good green bean. I preserved some of them. I didn't plant a ton, so I didn't have like a lot of cans of green beans, but a few. And this year I plan to grow enough to really put up a lot. And then the last seed company is Gurney's. And I don't see any of my seed packets in here, big surprise because it's such a mess, but I've ordered, we have a couple of fruit trees, cherry trees, I believe. Did we get those from Gurney's? Now I'm questioning myself. I think we did, but if not, I know you can get really high quality fruit trees from Gurney's. And I did also get some rhubarb roots from them, and I planted them last year. So I didn't harvest any last year, but they were growing. They had, you know, stalks and leaves, and they seemed to be doing well. So we'll see this spring how they do. I think rhubarb, I have never grown that before. My grandma used to grow it, but it kind of is like asparagus, where the first couple years maybe you're not going to get as much of a crop, and then you'll be rewarded for years and years with a good crop. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's how rhubarb grows. Anyway, so now I am just going to kind of organize these by variety, like flowers. I do have quite a few flowers in here, and get them in those new containers, and then I'll talk about some of my favorite varieties. Another one I didn't mention, but I definitely should have, is Wild Boar Farms. I love growing tomatoes. It's definitely my favorite thing to grow and to eat in the summertime and to preserve. And Baker Creek has really awesome varieties. They do carry some of Wild Boar Farms varieties as well. But if you love growing tomatoes and you have not heard of Wild Boar Farms, you should definitely look them up. They just have really cool varieties, very unique varieties that they, you know, cross-pollinate and make their own tomato varieties, which I just think is really cool. Okay, so I have them semi-organized by variety, by season. Like I've got the cool weather stuff in some piles. And I'm going to start seeds for those probably either tonight or in the next couple of days. I'm a little late getting that done, but I'm not too worried about it. I am gonna start some broccoli, some cauliflower, some cabbage. I think I'll start some kale. I've never actually started kale inside before. I always just throw it out in the garden and it does pretty well, but I'd like to get a little bit of a head start this year. We had a nice long cool spring last year, so I got away with, I guess, starting it out there before it got too hot. I was able to harvest quite a bit. What else? I don't know what else. Those are the main ones that I'm gonna start now. I might try to winter sow some onions. I've also never done that before. And then in a few more weeks, I will start things like tomatoes, eggplant, peppers. It's just, I think it's too early to start them indoors now because I would just run out of space by the time I had to, you know, pot them up, and just, it would become a mess and kind of a jungle, and I just don't really have the space for that inside. I wish I had a greenhouse, but you know, one day. But yeah, so now I'm gonna take these semi-organized piles and put them in my new containers, and as I go along, I'll just share some of my most favorite varieties. Just to show you more closely, it's a big plastic container that opens up, and then inside are these photo containers, which are just the perfect size for these seed packets. So they're not super thick, which is fine. I'm just gonna try to clump, like I have several varieties of kale here. And I guess I'll show you what my favorite one, well, I can't really say it's my favorite. Right now it is the one that I've grown the best, and just, I had the most beautiful blue curled Scotch kale plants last year. I mean, just into the summer, which really surprised me. They did get a little bitter when it got hot, which these types of plants tend to do. Anything in sort of the cabbagey, cruciferous family, it either just doesn't do well in the heat, or it'll still grow, it just won't taste very good. It'll become very bitter. Still edible, just not as delicious as in the cooler weather. Anyway, this is the blue curled Scotch, and I'm trying to think. I know I have photos and video. If I can't find it, which I'm not making any promises, if you go to my Instagram story highlights, I have several garden highlights, and I know that I have photos of this plant from last year. It was just so beautiful. I kept taking photos of it all the time. So anyway, I'm just gonna try to, let's just see here together. Oh yeah, those will totally fit. So all my kales are in here, and I might add a few other greens that kind of go along with the kale. Like I've got a spinach here, which I'm gonna plant, you know, well, I don't know if I'll start it inside because it grows so quickly in the garden. I'll think about that, but that can live in here with my kale because they go together. Same season, similar growing habits. But anyway, I'm just gonna keep on going, and I will let you know when I come across some of my favorites. Okay, I have to mention these little guys. I have two open packages of them somehow. These are cucamelons, and also in my Instagram story highlights, you will see these, and on my Instagram feed, I've posted them a few times. I just love growing these. I learned about these from, well, I think I knew about them, but I learned about growing them from Jess at Roots and Refuge. They're just one of those things, like you would never grow these to sustain, you know, yourself. They're not what I would consider like a preserving crop, but they're just really fun to grow, and they're like the perfect garden snack, and that's exactly why I grow them. You only need to plant a couple of these seeds and plant them near a trellis or near like your garden fence, and they will just grow and cover it, and then you'll have these perfect little tiny cucumbers to just pick and snack on while you're out there working in the garden. And I just love them. I'm always gonna have these in my garden now. They just make me happy. So this one is kind of gonna be a mix of just cool weather varieties that I'm gonna try to grow all of them right now. We'll start them now. For spring harvest, and then again I will grow them in the fall for a late fall and even a winter harvest, because a lot of these things will do just fine out when it gets really cold. So I've got turnips, cauliflower. This is purple cauliflower. I never start my cauliflower early enough, and it just never does really well. I'm gonna try to do that this year. And then broccoli. Did I say broccoli? I don't know, but broccoli, I did grow this last year and it did well. I was able to harvest quite a bit before it got too hot out. And this is something I've never tried. I did grow regular celery last year, but not this Chinese pink celery. So I'm definitely gonna try that this year. I'm excited about that. And cabbages. Cabbages are something else I'm gonna start now for a spring harvest, and then also try again in the fall for a late fall winter harvest. These are a couple of, I think these are called like ox heart. The shape of them is referred to as ox heart cabbages. They're just a little smaller. These aren't storage varieties, so I'm not going to grow a whole ton of them. They're really more for like fresh eating in the season. I think they still last a good while in the fridge, but they're not like the kind you'd put down in your root cellar and last you, you know, try to get to last you the whole year. I do have some of those though. And the one that I was showing earlier, this one I read about, and it's supposed to be a really good storing variety, and I do like to make a lot of homemade sauerkraut. So I'm gonna try to grow a lot of these, so wish me luck. So that's what I'm putting. This is gonna be kind of a cooler weather, mainly cruciferous type veggie container here. And then I'm also putting in here fennel, which I've had really good luck with in both the spring and the fall. It just does really well in cool weather. I did not like fennel very much when I was a young woman, and especially not when I was a kid, but I love it now. It's one of my favorite vegetables actually, when it's roasted. So I will definitely grow this, and I will share how I cook it. This is a winter squash that I grew last year, kind of like last minute on a whim. I just kind of tossed a couple seeds in the ground towards the end of summer actually, and I got an amazing harvest of these beautiful, if you saw my last video, these are the Harvest Moon winter squash. I made a soup with them in my last video. They're just the most beautiful pumpkin. They're like a grayish, greenish, bluish, all mixed together. Anyway, definitely growing more. Here's another one of my favorite varieties to grow. This is Purple Lady Bok choy from Baker Creek. It is just so easy to grow. It's so beautiful. I'm a sucker for anything with that dark purple color. And it's delicious. I love cooking and eating bok choy. But this is just a really fun one that I'm gonna try to grow always. I need to get I have enough for this year, definitely. This is not, in my opinion, this isn't something I grow to store or to preserve. It's really for fresh eating. I'm also going to try to make some homemade kimchi this year. And I believe that there are bok choy kimchi recipes. So I might grow a little more than I normally would, because that is technically preserving, making anything fermented like kimchi or sauerkraut. Anyway, I just had to share this one because I love it. And now, my favorite part, the tomatoes. As you can see from this crazy amount of tomatoes, which I've grown quite a few of these varieties already. I just love growing tomatoes. I love the different varieties. I love heirloom. Like, I think all of these are heirloom because I just really enjoy growing them, and I do like to save seeds. But I'm not going to go through all of these, but let me just give you I'll give you the highlight reel. This one, Aunt Ruby's German Green, is one of my favorites. It's just a delicious tomato. It grows nice big green tomatoes. You can definitely preserve these. I think a lot of people think you only can grow like, you know, paste tomatoes or certain varieties of red tomatoes to preserve, and that's not true. These varieties can sometimes be a little more work, so I understand why it's easier to grow one easy variety and just can away, you know, and that's it. But I love growing different varieties, and I always will do that. And I will kind of bulk up on the ones that are a little bit easier to preserve. But this one, I mean, imagine if you grew a whole bunch of these and made a whole bunch of like green tomato sauce. I don't know, maybe that would be weird, but I think it would be cool. So yeah, one of my favorites. This one is when I say grow a whole bunch of one variety that's really easy to preserve. This is one of the standards. I learned about this one a long time ago. It just grows a lot of uniform tomatoes, and so that's just easier when you get on a roll, like processing your tomatoes. You don't want to have to, like, you know, some heirlooms have like the cracks and they grow in different shapes and sizes. This one is just like, you know, you can get your little assembly line going in the kitchen, and it just is so much easier with this type of a tomato. So I'm gonna grow quite a few of these this year. And this one kind of goes along with that. Just very prolific, lots of good red tomatoes, good for sauce making and preserving. This is one I would not grow to preserve, but I love this tomato. It tastes really good, but it's also just beautiful. It has all these ridges. It's called mushroom basket tomato, and it's just really a cool tomato. Like when you slice into it, you've got this like fluted edge tomato, and the food photographer in me can't resist them. Oh, this one. This one I'm not exactly sure how to say. Dr. Witches, Dr. Weiches, not sure, but I know that this is a delicious and beautiful tomato to grow. Definitely in my top 5 favorites, and I learned of this one again from Jess at Roots and Refuge. It's just so good. It has, I don't know, it's like a brighter tasting tomato. You know, some tomatoes have more of like the rich, like umami tomato flavor. This one is more bright and acidic, but in a very pleasant way. It's not too acidic. It's just really, really good for fresh eating, and it makes the best tomato sandwich. And they all fit. That's amazing. Some of these are tomato seeds that I saved myself, and I grew some of them last year and they did just fine. One of them did cross-pollinate itself, because what I thought I was growing is not what I got, but it was still a really good tomato, which was just kind of a fun, garden experiment. But they are just a variety of, just a handful of different tomatoes. Yeah, this is the one. I wrote tomato heirloom. It's from 2019 is when I harvested this, when I saved these seeds. And I wrote in parentheses possible cross, and it definitely was. And then I have, these are my great white. That's another one of my favorites. I wish I had a photo. They're just so pretty. They're big white tomatoes with like little hints of pink, and I think almost like an orangish color. When you slice into them, you'll see that color on the inside, and they're very delicious. One of my favorite for fresh eating. So I will definitely grow these again. I'll share, when I start my tomatoes, I'll share the varieties that I'm starting, because of course I'm not going to start all of these. I wish I could. I don't have the space yet in my garden. We are going to expand. But it's fun to grow all these varieties, but I went a little crazy last year with varieties, and I ended up kind of regretting it, because while I had a beautiful tomato harvest, I just had a lot of different sizes, and I wish that I had planted the varieties, the fun ones that I wanted to for fresh eating, and then just grown a lot more of the kind of simple, basic, standard preserving varieties, which I am going to do that this year. And I will take you all along for that. These are a lot of from the Wild Boar farms. I wouldn't say they're known for their smaller tomato varieties like the cherries and the grapes, but in my mind, that's kind of what I think of. They have like just really beautiful cherry and grape sized tomatoes, like snacking tomatoes. And so that's what a lot of these are from Wild Boar farms. And I think if you look in I know I keep talking about my Instagram story highlights. It's not like a shameless plug to get you there. It's just that that's before starting my YouTube channel. That's where I share, videos of my garden and things like that. So if you are curious about my gardens of days gone by, feel free to hop over there and check out those highlights and see some of these varieties I'm talking about. I go and look sometimes when I'm just really missing my garden. I'll kind of go scroll through and look at all my old garden babies. So these I'm just gonna put in their own container. Just all my, either the ones that I saved or the Wild Boar ones that are in these plastic packets. And they will all be contained, finally. Oh goodness, I keep saying that I'm done, but I'm not. This is called a spoon tomato, and they are really cool, but really wild. I made the mistake of thinking like, oh, it's a tiny tomato, so it's gonna be a tiny plant. And I kind of crowded it into one of my beds. That plant took over. I mean, the tomatoes they're called spoon tomatoes. And I do have a photo, I'll insert it. They're so cool. Like, the food photographer in me just can't resist growing them, because they're itty bitty little tomatoes and they're delicious. But the plants I've never seen a tomato plant grow the way a spoon tomato plant grows. They're also called currant tomatoes, like currant, like the little dried fruit. Well, not always dried, but the little fruit that you dry, and it's like a little raisin. So they're just tiny and they're really awesome, but they're really a pain in the neck to harvest, because you think about a cherry tomato, they grow on the stem and then they have all the cherry tomatoes that come off of it. Well, these are like that, but they're tiny. So it's just very tedious to harvest them. They're definitely not a preserving type of tomato. It would just, you would lose your mind trying to preserve them because they're so teeny. But they're really cool. They're worth growing, but beware. Like, you want to contain that plant and prune it and take good care not to let it just consume your garden bed, because it will. So I was talking about the corn earlier, the Never Been Kissed, or Who Gets Kissed, Never Been Kissed. I think that's a movie. And this is another one. I'm just growing this one, just a good basic prolific corn crop is what I'm hoping for from this one. But this is something that I'm gonna try to grow in my raised beds. It's called Blue Jade Dwarf Sweet Corn. And I know I keep talking about Jess at Roots and Refuge, but you know, she is my favorite. And I first saw this on her channel. And it's just a really cute little corn plant. And it grows these beautiful blue corn cobs. And apparently when you cook them, they turn a little more green than blue, but it's just kind of a fun crop that I'm gonna grow this year and I'm looking forward to. These are my onions. I got all of these from Baker Creek, and they're just nice onion varieties. I have never grown any of them, but I looked up onions that are good for my growing zone, as well as good storage varieties, because that's what I'm going for. My goal really is to grow enough onions to sustain us for a year, you know, like grow all of our onions until we grow again next year. And we'll see. I do have high hopes. I don't know. I've never done that before, so we'll see how that goes. But I did grow quite a lot of onions last year, and they lasted us a good while, but it made me realize, like, wow, you really have to grow a lot of onions. I mean, I cook every day, every night. I cook from scratch. And most recipes start with chop an onion, so you're using onions almost every single day. So we'll see. It's a goal of mine, and I hope that we can reach it, or at least get close. So yeah, and I'm gonna put these little bunching onions in there. Definitely not the same type of onion, but they can live together for now. And last but not least, for now, we'll deal with those in a minute. Zinnias. I have a lot of zinnias. I have more somewhere. Zinnias are my favorite flower, period. But I love growing them in my garden. My grandma always grew them. They remind me of her, which is, you know, enough to make them my favorite. But I love her and I miss her, and whenever I grow these, it reminds me of her. So they will always be in my garden. It worked. Oh, here we go. This is that horrible mess of a seed collection condensed down to one full box. This one's a work in progress. I still have a lot of flowers that I'm trying to decide what to do with. These are just random varieties of seeds that I actually got from, well, after my father passed away and I was helping clean up his house, there was a pack, like a sealed package of, like, I don't know, my husband and I semi-joked it was like apocalypse seeds. And they are still good. I have used some of them. It's kind of just like basic, you know, there's cabbage. This is Swiss chard, radish, peas. So I'm gonna try to use up as many of these this year as I can, because I think they are getting a little old. They're definitely a few years old now. But I'm just gonna stick these all together in their own container. and deal with them later. This was empty, pumpkin. And these are ground cherries, which I think I'll stick in with the tomatoes because they kind of grow similarly. Just a fun crop. These are just like little garden snacks too. So anyway, that's it. Thank you so much for watching and helping me get my seeds organized, and I will see you next time.